guts.
Hello and welcome back to the Guts and Glory MMA podcast. I am Paul O'D and today I am joined in studio by Mr. Andy Hickey, our stat man. How are we doing, Andy?
Not too bad. I'd say I'd come down to Cork and see what's going on and maybe indulge in some activities after the show.
Yeah, we've got a couple of Heineken on the desk where this one isn't going to be taken seriously. It's a celebration. It's episode number 50, so we said we'd get a bit liquored up and we'd enjoy ourselves rather than actually talk fights. If anyone's in the comment section and you're expecting us to talk about two fight cards last night, we'll talk a little bit about them, but I'll wholeheartedly admit I didn't even fucking watch. I watched about 3 minutes of one fight.
Well, because I wanted to be super prepared for the show, I watched every single fight live last night and took notes. I left my notepad at home.
Yeah.
But yeah, it wasn't for the faint-hearted last night. It was a trooper show, but we got there in the end.
And both cards you were saying were kind of...
Bellator wasn't too bad, but you know the relevance there level. It's not like you're watching.
Well, the upside of this is now you know my position when I'm here with Liam, because Liam never watches the fights, and I'm on the other end kind of going, right, I've watched everything, and Liam's like, I watched a couple of highlights. We'll be all right. We'll get through it.
Well, I understand it because this is my first trip to SBG Cork, and it's the most amazing. I'm overwhelmed at how professional this place is. It's amazing.
Gym is shit hot, right?
As I said to you earlier on, I wish I walked into the doors here when I was a teenager. Instead of being 33 and a retired alcoholic.
In my case, 31 and a fat slob. I still got in there and did it, but yeah. So, like Liam would say, we do have a lot to be getting on with. Not really, but we're going to talk shit for an hour anyway. So let's be getting on.
I want to fight with Chuck. Chuck.
I think he just blew his wad there. Anderson Silva, you absolutely suck.
Where you at, McNuggets, you fucking piece of shit?
So yes, we are going to talk about somewhat the fights last night, and please get into the comments and help us through this one, because like as you said, the fight card was absolutely fucking diabolical, the UFC fight card. I'm so happy I missed it. I was feeling guilty until you started explaining it when I met you. I was just like, I'm so happy I didn't fucking watch it today.
There were some high points, but they were dwarfed by the low points, and I would possibly consider. There's over 500 UFC events, and I'd happily say I've seen all the main events, and I'd have to rank this as the number one worst main event.
The very worst
I've ever seen. It was so bad.
But in comparison to, let's say, I'd throw out a couple of examples, Lewis and Ngannou.
It was not as bad as Lewis and Ngannou, but it's on that territory.
Okay.
It's...
The only reason Lewis and Ngannou was so bad is because we were expecting it to be so fucking great.
Yeah.
And it was a shit fight, but it wasn't.
In fairness, I was expecting this one to be a shit fight, and it was.
It was a shit fight.
I turned it off, and I was like, Bellator main card is starting at 3 o'clock. I think I'll just piss around and watch that. But like it was not good.
Horrendous stuff. But we do have a few comments coming in. We have Bro9324, the return of the Pike Man coming. Yeah, he's a friend of the show. He's fighting next Friday. Pike Man this week, John Mitchell next, then Bellator Dublin, and the next day Ian Gary. Couple of good weeks coming. We've had a few good weeks for Irish MMA. I mean, there hasn't been a weekend known. A month is there that we haven't had someone competing.
We've had a sensational run. Even we had the amateurs at the weekend, but we went over the last 2 weeks. We went, I think, 10-2.
Yeah,
and one of the losses was because 2 Irish reps were fighting each other.
Yeah.
I think everybody. Pete Carroll wrote an article today that everybody judges Irish MMA through Conor McGregor. But we're absolutely flying.
Yeah. And to a lesser extent through John Kavanagh and just SBG HQ, but you look like the whole way around the island. I mean, everyone's buzzing, all the gyms are buzzing, everyone's getting back into it. Quail to the Bar is back. OFC or UFC, Andy brought the cans. Greg O'Sullivan, Liam will be proud of that opening. Yeah, look, we butcher it every week. There's going to be no surprises. I turned it off and out on Family Guy, lol. Yeah, so you more or less same thing you did.
Oh, I threw on
Tunes
the
main event
very early. But after round 3, I was like, yeah, I'm going to watch Tunes and wait for Bellator. It was...
To be fair, you watched 3 rounds of it. It's more than I watched of any of the fights last night.
But I was half cut as well. That kind of helped.
Yeah. That main event still wasn't as bad of a fight as Sam Alvey versus Elias Teodoro. gonna have to fucking spark my memory on that one. I can't place. That definitely wasn't a main event, but I'm trying to remember that fight.
Isn't that the fight when Teodoro started doing the spinning?
Oh,
but not even landing?
Yes, yeah. Just awful shit. Yeah, that was a pretty poor fight. I'll give you that, Quilcha.
I don't know if Quilcha watched the fights last night because I know he was drunk and on the pints, so I think he might be bluffing there.
And to be fair for the Irish fans as well, I mean, we had our first event back proper in the south of Ireland with Cage Legacy 13 last night, and that show kicked off at 3 o'clock in the day. So we know of people that were on the beer from 3 o'clock.
Yeah.
And what, Bellator ended at 5:15, 5:30?
It was half 5 when I went to bed, I think.
14 hours on the beer. Yeah, not good. Not good at all. We were both a bit shook at this morning, even though I watched no fights. And Kevin O'Sullivan is here, the man who built our set, and Andy's very impressed with it, Kevin. Hi, guys.
Great job, Kevin. I'm blown away at how good it looks down here.
So we're going to come back to the comments there in a second, but the one thing we did want to touch on this week is the domestic abuse and everything that's happened in the last, I suppose, 3-4 weeks. But you have Chuck Liddell, John Jones, and
Luis Pena,
who got cut from the UFC.
Yeah,
interestingly.
That's highly controversial.
Extremely controversial given the circumstances and the way they worded it as well. Ongoing problems with the police. I mean,
John Jones hasn't been arrested 6 times in that time frame either. So
yeah, it's it's just stupid. But it is becoming a fucking it's a huge problem. And if this continues, like the sport is really being damaged by this
massively.
Do you think it's something to do with CTE, or do you think it's just? Is it steroids? Is it because there's loads of different things that people are saying that could be causing this kind of aggression?
Like I don't know anything about it, CT, so I'm not going to speak on it. But
yeah,
we can't expect people whose job is to get punched in the head to be rational at the end of the day. So there has to be some damage forming every time they spar, every time they fight. That is convoluting their decisions. But it's not a excuse. It's horrific. I'm delighted Luis Pena get cut.
Yeah.
On one hand, I'm like, okay, so the UFC keeps citing his mental problems.
Mental health problems, yeah.
So is it a good thing to cut him from his dream? His dream is the UFC. Is that only going to exacerbate the route he's going down?
But and it's not gonna stop him fighting. We know this. Yeah.
No, he'll get picked up. He's a relatively big name.
Yeah.
But it's no excuse at the end of the day. It's just horrible to see it, and the spate we've seen it in the last month.
Yeah,
it's just been terrible. There's no way around it. It's not anything anybody wants to see in any form, whether it's male on female or female on male abuse.
Yeah. Do you believe at all in they've all come up with their own little bits after the fact? John Jones, we'll get to him, but Chuck Liddell came out, and did you read about that it was his wife he was claiming was abusing him? Do you believe that he got arrested for?
He filed for divorce.
I know he filed for divorce, but I mean, he said that they were trying to arrest his wife, and he offered himself to be taken away. I don't know if that's legitimate.
I can believe it. We do anything for the people we love, and he probably just took a bullet. But we can only read what we see in the media.
That's true.
Chuck's case looks more family orientated than the other two.
Yeah,
which was a more egregious kind of thing that we've seen. But it's not good to come wake up every week and see what MMA fighters are doing compared to all the other sports that are out there.
Yeah, and then John Jones, of course, this week saying that his daughter didn't see anything and that he didn't hit his wife. He's denying it. And I mean, from the stories, the contradicting stories, essentially, we got a week ago from police reports and from hotels. And now, obviously, it's all second-hand information. What we got from John was from John, but like it's just so hard to believe anything he's saying.
What bothers me with John is, okay, what happened or didn't happen, we don't really know the full events of it.
Yeah.
But John is blaming alcohol on all these problems. Now, I love it, okay? And I'm very bad for it.
Yeah.
And I don't believe that a different personality comes out when you're drinking. I just think it's an enhanced version of yourself.
Yeah.
Maybe a more confident or, out there version.
Yeah.
But you don't become a bad guy because you're drinking.
No,
That's innate
no.
inside of you.
Yeah. 100%.
So John going, my problems with alcohol are over. I'm never going to drink again. This will stop. That's John's way of shifting the blame to something else and not owning up for himself as being what he is,
And it's not addressing the problem. There's obviously a massive issue there, a problem. And he's not addressing it at all. He's just curbing something that he's been using as a mask for his behavior. Like, yeah. How the UFC decided to cut Pena 2 days after this incident with Pena, and John Jones is just skating through without UFC really making any major comment or decision on it, is complete. I know he's a draw, but it's bullshit. How many times has Dana White said the line, we don't rely on any fighter, we don't need a Conor McGregor, we don't need a John Jones, the UFC will be fine without them, blah blah blah. But he's showing by keeping John Jones around right now that the UFC is saying they need John Jones.
I'll ask you a serious question.
Right.
How many pay-per-view buys does John Jones versus a Francis Ngannou or Cyril Gane do?
I honestly, I think that's dependent on the card, and that'll tell you what kind of draw John Jones is. He's a bigger draw than most of the fighters, granted, but he's not a £1 million draw in and of himself. Nor is Cyril Gane or Francis Ngannou. I think them against each other is as close as we're going to get to $1 million without McGregor. But I do think it's also dependent on the card if they get over the $1 million or not. I don't think you put on a card like there was last night, Norma Dumont and fucking Leah Letson or someone, even though Leah Letson wasn't fighting, but I can.
Leah Letson.
Yeah. But someone like that in a co-main, I think you're scraping to get $1 million. I think it's a very tough sell to get $1 million.
But if they sell $1 million at $69, what's the current market price for an American pay-per-view? That's $70 million.
79, I think.
Is it 79? Sorry, you say $80 million. And we know that the market share that UFC fighters get is 18%.
Yeah.
So then you've got to factor in gate and all the sponsorship that comes with that. John Jones fighting, whether we like it or not, is probably
big money.
Huge. It's over 100 million revenue to the UFC.
Yeah.
I'm not a financial expert, but that's what I'd estimate that. I reviewed all his pay-per-views. Yeah. His average sales since he was a headliner, 650,000 pay-per-views. And he's headlined over, I think it's 13 times.
Yeah.
It's probably more than that now since I looked at it. But he is a huge moneymaker for the UFC.
But 100% I agree with you. And then they're never going to have multiple 1 million plus pay-per-view draws. So the likes of John Jones is a lot more important than people want to give credit for, because everyone sees that $1 million pay-per-view buy as the kind of benchmark, just because Conor was smashing it out of the park time after time. But he's one of a kind. Like, I mean, you even look at in boxing, there's two guys that you could be confident of getting 1 million pay-per-views. And even at that was in there when they were fighting big names in their prime. Right now, is there anyone that was going to guarantee you 1 million?
Well, Fury and Wilder did 600K.
Yeah, that's my point.
Which is bang average card for the UFC at the moment when they stack it relatively. Usman and Covington will do more than that. Easily.
You just said John Jones 650, so John Jones is selling bigger than Fury and Wilder.
At an average. Yeah. So that's their one,
Yeah, they're big.
I know that's their trilogy, but their one push.
Yeah.
And then John Jones' career average is higher. John Jones has got in there with a lot of good fighters, don't get me wrong, but it's hard to sell fights when Anthony Smith. That's
not the most marketable fighters.
That's a hard sell.
Yeah. And he's been in there with a lot of Brazilians who are notoriously through the history of the company have been very hard to market as well. We're going to bring in the comments there before we continue on that, because they're rolling away up there. The boys are keeping us busy tonight, thankfully. I watched all the main card. Absolutely flaming drunk. I tend to avoid tweeting when in that state, Quilcha. Probably best, yeah. Greg O'Sullivan, I thought Chuck was the victim of domestic abuse. That's what we were touching on. That's why he came out with. He's, to be fair, character. You go by characters. He's probably more believable, or at least it's easier to believe that man than it is John Jones right now. Kevin O'Sullivan saying possibly a combo of all of the above I don't know what he's referring to there now, whether it's domestic abuse or... We could see Chuck, Pena, Jones, and McGregor in the prison fighting championships.
There's a lot more you could add there in there as well. Like.
There's quite a few. There is quite a few. And Kevin O'Sullivan, can it be guys coming from humble beginnings to get huge success and can't handle it? Who knows? It could be an element of it. But like you said about with the drink, it enhances your own personality. There's an innate badness in them anyway if that's what they turn to. We're not talking about... Like, we touched on it. Conor McGregor, again, last night, punching a fucking DJ in Italy. And the reference point we were talking about was that on a night out, if you get lippy with someone here in Cork or in Tip, they're going to fucking punch you.
Yeah, and rightfully so.
Do you know what I mean? That's kind of in our nature, good or bad, but we don't see it as like an innately bad... You're not a bad person. Anyway. Yeah. It's just, that's who we are, where they call us the Fighting Irish for the reason.
I'm a quiet person, so I'll never be involved in anything. But if we're in a bar and someone gets punched, you're kind of like,
he'd probably asking
what did you do? You know, especially where I go for a few beers, but my friends wouldn't exactly be the Ritz, so it's kind of a common thing in there. Like,
basically, you're admitting the Clonmel as a whole, and you heard it here first, but
not too far off, anyway.
Yeah, but so you can somewhat defend that, but when you're domestic abuse and things along those lines, and some of the stuff that John Jones is being accused of, and Lewis Pena for that matter, they're bad people. There's no way of fucking sugarcoating it. And you can say, oh, humble beginnings, this, and too much fame. Bad people. End of the day. For my opinion, anyway.
Like, I was always raised that you could never
hit a woman.
Women or princesses, you know, that kind of way. Yeah. You know, I respect them and love them, so you're never allowed to.
But what's mad now is you get fucking cancelled for even saying that because of equality. But that's another fucking story. That's all bullshit as well. We were raised don't hit women, and that's the end of it. So bro 9324, bro, you might let us know your name there, because I'm calling out your handle too often. Andy doesn't know the pay-per-view prices. Dana's going to be after you. A little accusation thrown at Andy. And did you see the Michael Graves stuff today?
Fair bad.
What's Michael Graves about?
He was commenting on... Well, he just did a lot of expletives on the LGBTQ community.
Oh, shit.
And he's not a fan of all of us coming together, you know, that kind of way.
Okay, yeah.
That was probably the wrong term to use. But
it's all right. Listen, we do it every fucking week on air, so it's fine. No one's going cancelling us. Yeah.
But he's in big trouble.
They're coming after
LFA
him
now, or one of the orgs there. But you know, he was a guy again. He went tough back in the day.
Yeah,
and
I remember him, the long hair.
Yeah, he had his problem with in prison, but he came out with a rant that was just, you know.
And by the way, that's a community. They go after you. They stopped Kevin Hart getting the Oscars
the gig,
posting. Like they just said absolutely fucking not nor watch you getting that after the comments you made.
They have a guy online all day just looking, you know, I'm gonna hunt this motherfucker down now. Like Graves just dug himself a hole and he wouldn't stop. People were like, stop, Mike, and he just kept going and going. Like at the end you gotta get
you're on your own. Unfollow. Just see what happens after. That's actually quite similar, way off topic now, but William Shatner this week landed himself in hot water with the autistic community.
I didn't see it, no.
And
not a Star Trek guy. Not a Star Trek guy.
But what's mad is, for the autistic community, for like decades, Star Trek was a big part of it, like, because it's one of their shows that they watch. But he's after landing himself in proper hot water with the autistic community. And quite funny to see it unravel, and he trying to defend himself. And like that, you're like, just stop tweeting. Get a publicist, get a PR person straight away.
Go have a pint there for yourself.
Back to the comments there. We have Niall. Oh yeah, that's your name.
He's on Twitter. He's a good follow. I enjoy talking to him.
And Frankie Dean is asking, will James Haskell ever fight, lads? Feel like he was going to wake his MMA about 9 years ago. True, yeah. And there was all these talks. But look, I mean, you have, what's his fucking name, that twat, the wrestler?
Jake Hager.
Jack Swagger. Jake Hager is ranked still with Bellator. So I mean, there's no rush with James Haskell. He could show up a fucking 40 odd and probably get ranked or probably get a shot at the title.
He beat the shit out of Junior Dos Santos there the other night on the wrestling. So you know, I actually saw, and I don't know if it was a joke. Yeah. One of the bigger American journalists saying they should make this fight in Bellator.
They were clearly fucking joking.
I don't think they were. Like, trying to pick up the tone. They're like, convoluting MMA and wrestling.
But don't tell me they saw this and went, well, that was competitive. Jake Hager might.
I think they saw it as like that would sell. But like, Junior
right.
Dos Santos would probably be in prison after murdering a man.
Yeah, 100%. But there's no, surely there's no governing body allowing that fight to happen. How many fights Junior have? 40 plus?
I don't know, but he's a UFC champion, one of the most experienced UFC fighters.
And your man is 3-0.
3-0 against
that
myself and yourself.
Yeah, absolutely couldn't be fucking allowed. There's no way I'm not having it. And if there's a what are they, athletic commission or whatever, if there's one of them out there that'll put that on, they shouldn't be a fucking commission in the first place.
The worst thing is I'd watch it then.
Oh, I'm watching it as well, but I'm watching it to see him get the shit kicked out of him. Like, because Junior would actually hurt him. Like, it's Junior would absolutely put it on him for fucking however what minute it lasted. We are going to touch on the fights. We kind of touched on the main event already and how shit it was.
Are we not going to discuss what the Irishman did last night?
Oh, Connor.
Yeah.
We kind of touched on it. Look, he's a fucking idiot. At the very best of times, he's a fucking idiot. But, like we said, it's one of those things where I've been on nights out and I've got lippy with people and I've got a fucking punch and I just go, how many people go up to him and plague him? You were saying Chuck Liddell was constantly people looking to fight him. Like, Conor McGregor surely has that.
How is it going to end for him, though? Where, like, Conor seems to be spiraling a little bit. Like, remember when he came in, it was all that famous promo where he wanted $25 million in the bank, 2 titles.
Yeah.
Where is he going now? Is he just going to be, one of these celebrities going around? He's in Rome now. He was in America last week. Like, he's clearly enjoying himself.
Yeah.
And take that up whatever way you want.
He knows how to live the celebrity lifestyle for sure, anyway.
But he's 62. You said the clean tests.
But do they actually test for cocaine?
Well, you said that.
I don't think they're looking for it, especially out of competition. I don't think they'd release if it did test positive.
Well, if they were looking for it, I think Stevie Wonder would find it at the end of the day now.
Yeah, look, the boy's out enjoying himself. He's going to fight again. He has 2 fights on his UFC contract. And I maintain still he's going to fight out his contract and look to do his own thing with McGregor Sports Entertainment.
Yeah.
So he's going to be in the headlines for quite some time yet. He's enjoying himself. He's going to mellow it after time, but stuff like what happened last night, I don't read too much into. There's other stuff that happens that you're kind of going, all right, chill out a bit. But yeah, no, I wouldn't. What happened last night is no big fucking deal, really.
It's not to me either, but when I read it, I was like, thank God John Jones has been fucking up lately, so no one is going to look into this.
Yeah, if you compare the two, they're incomparable in their kind of indiscretions through the years. They're both have fucked up and made huge errors, but one is like we said, a bad person, and one, like Kevin was saying about coming from humble beginnings and blah blah blah, and too much money and too much stardom. You could argue that that's what's going on with Conor. Obviously there's other, he's making a fucking tit of himself at time as well, but I don't think we can cross the line just yet and say a bad person.
I'd love if he just came back to what we had 6 or 7 years ago, and we had
a motivated Conor McGregor. Get in there and have another fucking run at it.
I know he's not going to make featherweight at all. And lightweight is a huge problem at the moment because they're such good fighters. But I'd love if he clearly found a love for the sport again.
Yeah,
and we saw the man of old, but he's 33 now.
Yeah,
he's not for lightweight. He's old,
Yeah, and he's, people are talking about the losses. He's only fighting the very best guys in the world, and he's off fucking partying for 6 months, and then he jumps back in after a quick camp and he's fighting number 1, number 2 in the world. Yeah, look, we'll see 2 more of those type of fights, I think, and then there'll be something big with McGregor Sports Entertainment. He'll put on his own show, and can you imagine the fucking money he will make off of his own show?
Yeah, it'd be amazing. We might get an interview with him though.
Yeah, but he's doing what, $1.5 million, let's say, pay-per-view buys.
That's
essentially
that's a low
just on his own.
Yeah.
And he get what? I mean, I can imagine he gets about a 5-10% cut of that. There's no way he's getting more than that. If he runs his own show with a pay-per-view, sells $1.5 million, he could charge a fucking £100 for it. I mean, the man's gonna have another 100. Not that he needs it, but he's gonna have another 150, 200 million for a fight.
I'd fully expect
easily
he'll box Pacquiao or something like that. You know,
and he'll put that on himself, run the whole show himself,
and we'll all go to it and spend all our money.
Quarter of £1 billion he'd probably make off the fucking thing. Like, yeah, that's insane.
We better get onto the fights, I suppose.
Yeah, unfortunately, we are going to talk about the fights from last night a little bit, unless there's some comments there that can keep us distracted for another 10 minutes. So Niall is back in. He might not be the best heart, but who else charges at their opponent and launches 2 spinning heel kicks at the start of a fight? Who are we waiting, or who are we talking about there?
I think that's Jake Hager, is it?
Oh, very possibly, yeah.
I don't know. Niall Lapp's going to...
Yeah, I mean, please don't be big upping Hager anyway, because he's a fucking twat. I really can't stand the man. And for some reason, I follow him on Instagram. I think it was because the whole thing with Ryan and Ryan calling him out. And I'm following him on Instagram, and he literally, I fucking shudder with just pure cringy shit that he comes out with every day. Patiently waiting for Connor to buy the club and ban the DJ. A boy, Greg, you probably fucking bang on as well.
On the Black Forge.
Niall is saying, I want to see him and Tony Ferguson. See, I think that's just it. There are still so many good fights for him there.
The Diaz trilogy sells
2 million.
1.7. Yeah, it does. It's easy.
Yeah.
And I'll go over to it. No problem.
100%.
Who doesn't want to see that fight?
Like, it's not even that, but I think that could be one of the first ones he does on his own. I think he's kicked this down the road enough to make this fucking huge thing. We're flying the Diaz's over to Dublin, we're going to take them on in our backyard kind of thing. I think it could be one day he's keeping in his back pocket. Kavanagh needs to lock his bank account until he gets a win. I doubt that's going to happen. Kai O'Brien Jones is an undiagnosed sociopath. Pretty much, yeah. I'm not going to argue with you anyway. And Niall, the start of the Dustin Poirier fight, lol, with McGregor, the third one.
Do you know the third fight with McGregor, or with Poirier?
Yeah.
We were on the beer all day, and when the fight started, I had to go to a different room. I could not.
Just nervous, like?
Just going to get sick, couldn't handle it. So I was, my friend David, he's got a beautiful house, and there's two sitting rooms, and he was in the sitting room watching the fight, and I was in the other sitting room going, what's happening? He's like, oh, he's getting fucking killed. I was like, so I missed quite a portion of that fight just being in the sitting room having a meltdown.
Because you just couldn't cope with what was happening. Yeah.
I'm so used to be, like, that's in lockdown. I'm so used to being at the fights.
Yeah.
When McGregor, it's just weird. But
different experience.
Screen,
yeah,
you know.
We did the fight companion here for the second Dustin Poirier fight back last year. Jesus Christ, that was rough. That was a rough podcast because we did full fight companion. We were going 3 hours at that stage. We'd had a couple of cans, and it's getting towards the end of it, and there was me, Dave, Ryan, and Liam. Liam basically just pressing the off button in himself after the fight. He was fucking depressed off his head. There was just no way he was. So myself and Dave were some way trying to fucking keep the thing going for another, just until the end of the show. Yeah, it was fucking rough. I like doing the fight companions, but I don't think I'll do them anymore on fighters that, you know, Irish fighters or fighters we care about. It's just too fucking tough.
Last week was not a good...
No, it was rough. And we started the podcast with it as well. It was tough to get through then after. Kaya is thoughts on Norris Bartoska illegal kick on Cage Legacy.
Yeah, it's incredible, wasn't it?
And just before that as well, Quilcha did ask, and I was going to come back to it, was what do we make of the return of MMA in Ireland?
Oh, I couldn't be happier.
It's brilliant to see. And look, there was... The card was put together somewhat and thrown together last minute, and you have to say fair play to everyone, like Oima, everyone that was involved in putting it together, and the boys for putting the card on it. But we needed it, absolutely needed it. That Cage Legacy 13 was supposed to be on in, what was it, June of last year? July of last year?
Remember. Got cancelled very late notice.
The day before. And, or no, sorry, it was June of this year. I'm sorry. March 1st and then June. But I mean, this has been kicked down the road so much. And even coming into the week, this week, you were just waiting for the plug to be pulled. You know, there was no massive amount of confidence that, no, you knew the boys were doing the work to get it over the line, but you don't know, like, are the government going to pull the plug on it, or are they going to find some way of not getting this show on? But yeah, brilliant to see it back. And by all accounts, I didn't get to see the whole card, by all accounts, there were some very good performances on it.
Yeah, look, the fight card was overpriced, and I think it took a lot of people out of the equation.
Yeah.
But the clips we've seen, and I saw 4 fights on it because I wanted to see the 4 fights, were very good.
Yeah.
It's beautiful to see MMA back down there. We all know how hard it is to have MMA in the south of Ireland, given the red tape that's there compared to our the guys in the north. They can run events pretty seamlessly at the moment.
Yeah.
Max Lally looks insane.
Mm-hmm.
We'll just saying, it's probably not on the screen. So that fight, and we had discussions yesterday.
Yeah.
One of the problems I had with it is you have a professional Thai fighter.
Yeah.
Who is fighting an amateur MMA. Now, we know that's not allowed by AMAF.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's a very big problem there with having a pro fighter in with amateurs. And a lot of these guys, if you went through the average age of that card, they're teenagers. A lot of them, you know, I don't like it. I don't like what I saw for parts of it yesterday. But then we had some really good fights, and I think, oh man. And I asked Liam, like, what's it like in person? Max Lally.
Yeah.
Like, we all get, and I think I'm part of the problem with it as well. We hype the guys too much, you know.
And there's too much pressure on their shoulders.
Too much pressure, and I'm doing it all the time because I'm trying to push Irish MMA, and, you know, like 2 guys down here, like Pat and Ryan, if they speak, we have it up on the internet so that people can see what they're doing. And you know, I'm conscious that guys like Max Lally are going to get swallowed up. Yeah.
But there does seem to be some kind of aura about the kid.
Yeah, he's so good.
Yeah, I mean, there's a confidence about him, and there's this kind of an almost knowing about him, you know, and you see in very few people that confidence. That some people will look at and just see arrogance, or they'll see whatever, but like, it's like he knows he's going right to the top. He knows his, you know, what his path is like in fighting. Like you say, I hope he doesn't get swallowed up, because we could do with another huge star. Like, we're never going to get another Conor McGregor, but we could do with a few new huge stars to break through and kind of set the tone again for the younger kids. And
Lally's rolled with Danaher Dead Squad, so you know, if you're over there, you're pretty special.
And he probably got invited over there, did he?
Yeah, without a doubt. I'd say he's one of the IMF juniors. I know that was his second senior Emmy.
Yeah.
What a talent, you know.
And what age is he now? Just
18,
turned 18.
18.
Yeah.
I got a bit of shit during the week because I put up a post, and I was like, you know, I was trying to promote that we had an amateur event on Saturday. You know, we could watch it, and I was hyping it purely based off Lally.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of seasoned people on the scene here did not like that an 18-year-old was taking a lot of the spotlight.
But I mean, look, unfortunately, the sport, it's a sport, but it's whoever sells the most tickets and whoever's garnering the most interest. They're the people that are going to be top of the card. They're the people that sell the events. They're the people that are getting eyes on the events. They should all be thanking these people.
Yeah.
You're seasoned. You've had 10 amateur fights, but want to be on a card with Max Lally. That's how you get you, and then put on a fucking performance. That's how you get your name out there. And we're all talking about Max Lally, and we're talking about a couple more people. Get on their cards, put on a performance, and then we'll start talking about your name when you've got garnered that interest around you. It's easy to start hating on kids that just because people are talking about him, but he's done nothing wrong. No. He's just made himself a fucking star out of nowhere, like.
Yeah, and I think, like, you're watching the sport roughly as long as I have been.
Yeah.
Probably might even be longer. I don't think I've ever seen this intensity on the amateur scene.
Yeah.
As we have now. Like, the guys can't speak.
Yeah.
You know, and somebody's on it, or some journalist or some podcast, or guys on Twitter or Instagram are, you know, really going harsh. It's just it's a tough time for the guys to come through. I am worried about the guys that are on them. They can't develop naturally.
But that seems to only be in Ireland.
Yeah.
Like in the UK, I don't know about it. I don't follow journalism in non-English speaking countries. But in the States, I know the amateur scene isn't not much to speak of over there, but there isn't pressure on these kids from a very young age, and they're not getting the exposure that the Irish kids here are getting. I mean, they're like your man Prospect MMA or whatever it is.
Yeah.
He has 20 interviews a week. He has people up, and they're all amateurs. They're all getting that spotlight. That isn't happening in other countries at all.
No, it's because I think we're such passionate fans, and we're a country built on fighting.
Yeah.
And we're all so hungry to see any of them succeed. Like Conor gave us the greatest thing we could ever have by having a champion in the UFC, but it filters the whole way down. Yeah. And the pressure that they all have now to even come near him, it's so unfair. It's like asking a golfer to be like Tiger Woods. It can't happen. Yeah. You know,
and there is never again going to be. There might be another world champion. There might be multiple world champions. We might next weekend or November have 2 world champions, but there's never again going to be another Conor McGregor. No one's going to make $500 million off of fighting. Do you know what I mean? Yeah,
I think we'll go well. Like Ian Gary is going to be sensational.
Yeah, a lot of eyes on him as well over there.
I expect Peter to pick up gold. Yeah, we have John Mitchell, who's out MMA Cork over in Abu Dhabi at the moment, who looks sensational. We're going to have guys that do well, and all the Northern boys are incredible from FIA and Next Gen. Like you've got McColgan, you've got Reese McKee, you got Paul Hughes. Sensational. I love Matty Elliott. I know he's only 1-0, but he's a guy I think is going to be huge. So it's wild.
Yeah, what we have right now in Ireland, I think it's the best crop of talent we've had. And I mean, we go back to the Brian Moores, Kyle Pendreds, Ash Daly's, and those guys. I mean, to think that those animals were training together and they came through at the same time. We had 10 like legit great fighters. Conor McGregor obviously being one, and Chris Fields. I'm leaving out names, but there was one crop, but it was out of one gym. Now it's all over the country. We have phenomenal fighters coming out of every gym.
Like Pete Carroll had a quote in his article today, a fantastic article on Cage Legacy, and he said that FIA is now the de facto #1 gym in the country because they're the one carrying the gold.
Yeah.
And how could you imagine that HQ SBG Ireland is not the goal setter for the country? And that's kind of where we're getting into now.
Well, until 2 weeks' time when they could have 2 Bellator champions again. But
that's kind of where it is.
But it's neck and neck. Yeah, everyone's kind of competing for belts. Everyone's up there. Like Pa here, 3-0 over in Combache. We didn't know Combache was a possibility until this year for Irish fighters, and we have how many over in Brave competing. Yeah, it's good times for Irish MMA for sure, and it's great to see the young lads, the amateurs, because they fucking needed to get back out there and get that experience. I know several have gone over to the UK in the last few month or two.
I'm not a big fan of the UK scene. I like UK fighters and I support them, but their scene's a bit shady.
Yeah, the amateur scene definitely.
I don't like it.
There's a touch of it.
Like we see a couple of the pros have gone over there lately to Dara Toman had a good win, but I would not advise a fighter to be over there.
I remember back in the day, I can't remember what the name of the event. OMAC was what it was called. I'll happily throw it under the fucking bus and give a shit. But this is 8-9 years ago, I want to say. Brian was, I think, 5-6-0. We went over to support him. He was fighting in Liverpool, and he was taking on Mike Wilkinson, who went on to
fight the UFC
after that. But the cage, warped in such a way that when Brian was trying to defend the takedown with his arse into the cage, it essentially sat him down into the cage and created like a shelf so the man could just pick his knees every time. And there was this kind of weird, and we were like, what the fuck is going on here? No, it was still a competitive fight. Brian lost the fight. He went back over to the same event about 6 months later to a year later. He got offered another fight, different guy, can't remember the guy's name. And he won the fight, clearly won the fight. He won 2 rounds, maybe lost the 3rd round, but it was a close round. And they gave him a unanimous decision. Brian was like, that's like, I felt like I won that fight, and he asked everyone after, and they were like, even the guys, the Liverpool guys that were supporting were looking at us kind of going, no, that he lost that fight. Our guy lost that fight, your guy won that fight. Turns out that 2 of your man's teammates were judges and this was they were trying to be a proper promotion, like, and two of his teammates were judging the fucking fight.
How long ago was this?
8-9 years ago. It's still going on over there.
That happened 9 years ago, but yet Brian is still going over to Russia, fighting a Russian on Team Fedor.
The man has absolutely no fear, none whatsoever.
He's the biggest balls in Irish MMA. I respect it.
Yeah, for sure. We're gonna. Jesus Christ, the comments have been rolling there. Oh yeah, sorry. So he was fairly good with elbows on his back in the third. Same with Queally, and what he did to Patricky. They must be scheming down in SBG. I don't know who he's talking about the first. Oh, sorry, about Connor and the elbows. That wasn't an illegal kick, Quilcha saying about the one on Cage Legacy. I know he was technically didn't have anything grounded, but by Lord, fuck you, man, couldn't have known that he had nothing grounded because he was just off the ground. Like, he threw an illegal kick. Let's be honest about it. It just happenstance. The man had picked everything off the ground when it landed.
He's a pro Muay Thai fighter, and in Muay Thai, you kick till they're dead. Like, so, you know, you can kick him in the back, you can kick him in the back of the head. He's trained in the art of just kill them.
Yeah.
You know, so his instinct when he dropped him,
take his fucking head off.
Take his fucking head off.
Yeah.
You know.
It was a scary fucking kick to see, though. Yeah.
Like, technically, Quilcha's right, but
yeah,
Marley, he's completely wrong.
Look, as I said, your man definitely threw an illegal kick. He just got very lucky. Kaya is saying, are you calling Liam autistic so for watching Star Trek? I didn't mean that everyone watches Star Trek is autistic, but yeah, look, it's he had a soul on the mat. I don't know what that's about either. Greg is saying, I thought he had a hand on the ground, which is a downed fighter. I mean, it was literally it was almost just picked up.
He had two down, but he pulled them up.
Yeah, but it like, you couldn't have timed that. Yeah. There's no person in the fucking world. You couldn't have timed that in the Matrix. Like, Niall is saying, I believe his hand was just off the ground as kick landed. How he wasn't got caught for coke is beyond me. Kaya, that's probably about McGregor. Yeah. Niall, with Ian Gary and Dean Barry on the UFC, I think it will excel Irish MMA a good bit. I'm confident Paul Hughes will get signed too as soon as he unifies the belt. That's for sure.
That's not an accurate statement.
With Dean Barry being in the UFC? Is he not in the UFC?
He's not in the roster.
Yeah. I mean, he's talking about fighting for the last 2.5 years, but we haven't actually seen him fight in there. And Fight Academy Ireland slowly taking over as number one Irish gym, I think, but SBG and Team KF are really good too. And then you have SBG Charleston, you have the lads coming out of here in SBG Cork. I mean, there is phenomenal amount of talent in Ireland right now.
KF looks good with what they've come on now. I know they lost Ian Gary, who's their pride.
It's a big loss, but
Ryan Shelley, Taka Mandu, they'll do okay, and they've got Tom King, Chris Fields. I wouldn't worry about Team KF. They're building something nice up there.
Definitely, and they've had a knack over the last 5 or 6 years of continuously producing stars, or not stars, but high level.
James Webb, Cage Warriors champion. He's even coaching these days.
Yeah. So, fights last night. We're finally getting to it. I think we've bullshitted enough of our way through basically 45 minutes. But yeah, the main event we touched on.
Chronic.
Absolutely fucking appalling. But what do you make of Aspen lads stepping in on 7 days' notice and being given this fight? A headline fight after missing weight. People, like Dana was saying, it's not a reward because she's stepping up in weight class. I get that that's a fine cover-up, but she's still in a main event. How the fuck is she in a main event slot after missing weight the week before?
She said she wasn't the first choice. She was the first one that said yes.
Okay, but even still.
Like, I would have just promoted Arlovsky to the main event. Like, it's irrelevant. Like, it's an irrelevant card.
I'd have promoted fucking... Who's down the bottom? I can't even say her name. Estella Nunes versus Arianny Carnelossi.
Steroids McGee there down the bottom. She's 13 years old, it says, and hasn't popped. I don't know how it's happened.
Who's that? Estella?
Carnelossi. Oh my God. It's actually hilarious. She's just jacked. Like,
yeah, I'd have promoted those two girls before I'd have given the two at the top an opportunity. No, saying that, I have been impressed with Dumont. Like I said to you, she came in, made her debut against Megan Anderson and got sparked unconscious. But she was written off after that, like she'd no future in the MMA. She cut to 35, even though she's a natural 45er, and she's had a good run. She's had 2 good wins and clearly has power in her hands. I've been impressed with her. And Aspen Ladd was brought in. She was the favourite in this fight.
Well, I had money on her anyway. That's all I know.
I had Dumont backed. I thought it was an absolute fucking no-brainer Dumont was going to win that fight.
Aspen Ladd did this thing. I know there's cameras there. It's the funniest thing I've ever seen. She has the hands up like this, right?
Yeah.
And every time she goes to strike, she slowly brings her fists together and then strikes. It's like the most telegraphed thing I've ever seen.
Yeah.
She was so bad, and her coach is getting shit for giving out to her after the third round. He fucking scalded her. And it's like, I didn't think he was harsh enough. She was that bad. It was chronic. And the worst thing about it is, if you look at 145 now, Norma Dumont, who, like, look, she's not going to take much blame for how bad an event it was. She's next in line to fight Amanda Nunes at 145.
Yeah.
She's going to get fucking killed.
Yeah.
You know?
But you talk about the corner man there and him getting shit for reaming her out of it. Weren't we on the other side of this only like a week ago, 2 weeks ago, that corners were too soft and they're being too gentle with their fucking fighters? Why is a fella getting shit now for going in tough? Like, they're fighters. They're in there, they're being paid to punch the fucking head off each other, and you're concerned about some fella with some motivational words that he's crossed the line somewhere?
We all get offended now about everything.
Get the fuck out.
All he was saying was, he literally said, "What the fuck are you doing?
Yeah.
This is awful."
Which is fair.
You know,
yeah.
and he was scolding her.
Yeah.
But like, that was clearly, in my eyes, that was a coach that knows his fighter and knows the words that you use against your fighter.
Yeah.
She was 3-0 down, or 2-1, I can't remember. She had to come out and win 4 and 5, regardless, right? So what do? You don't go, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. You got to get them pumped up so they come out, go for it.
Yeah.
You know, it didn't work, and he came out today and apologized because there was so much pressure on him. But like, what good would it be? Like, oh, we're going well, you know, we might try some takedowns, or like, you know, the fuck's that going to do at the end of the day?
Yeah. Are we asking for too much as fans, like for entertainment value? Should we even be listening to what they're fucking saying to each other in the corner?
I don't care what they're saying to each other. Like,
but we're not fucking going to be snowflaking about whatever they're fucking saying. But my point is, are we asking too much? Like, because think about the corner man, he's in there just trying to focus on his fighter. He gets shit if he's too fucking gentle with her. He gets shit if he's being, too fucking harsh on her. Like, do we just remove the cameras and the mics from the corner and let them do their fucking thing and we watch the fight?
Yeah.
The whole thing doesn't have to be a fucking spectacle or an entertainment.
No, it doesn't. Like, it's all about the fighters. And this is the third week now. We've had John Kavanagh with Johnny Walker. We had James Krause with Tim Elliott. Now we've had this one. It's just, who gives a fuck? They have the most personal relationship you could possibly have, fighter and a coach. What the fuck do we know about?
And they're partners as well, aren't they?
They're boyfriend and girlfriend. You know?
Yeah.
They spend all day with each other. What do we know about it? How they interact? You know, it's none of our business. And if he feels the need that he needs to do that, she's a fighter. It's not like she's some little princess at home. She goes out and kills people. I've seen Aspen Ladd fight live. She was on top of Tanya Evinger, and she was screaming as she was punching her. She wanted to kill her. Yeah. Aspen Ladd will be fine after getting a little bit of a scalding. Don't worry about Aspen Ladd.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, it's just fucking bananas. I think genuinely just take it. And from our perspective, and we want to see what's going on, it's great to get that insight sometimes. But I mean, if these guys are going to be getting shit all the time, we just say fucking take the mics out of the corners and let them do their business. Right, this is where my knowledge of last night absolutely fucking stops, because you'd film me in on this fight. But everything else, you're completely on your own now for the next fucking 20 minutes, Andy.
We're okay with it.
But Andrei Arlovsky, Carlos Felipe, I'd Felipe picked going into this one. I thought he was, I wouldn't say he's going to be a top 10, top 15 guy, but I thought there was a bit of promise there. And I thought Andrei Arlovsky is one of those guys, you don't know. He looks like he's on his way out, and then he put in a couple of good performances. He does whatever, but
it was like what we've seen with Arlovsky over the last 5 years. It was stereotypical, standoffish. Get in, get out,
winning on points.
Felipe that's 5 UFC fights.
Yeah,
all 5 to decision. So he's tied Blagoy Ivanov for the longest average fight time in UFC history as a heavyweight.
Jesus.
Arlovsky, that's 19 fights at heavyweight without having a finish.
Oof.
And he's what do you reckon Arlovsky walks around at? 270, 260? Easy.
Oh no, he weighs in about 248, doesn't he?
He must be 260 walking around.
Possibly.
And a fat day. We all have them. But like
most days.
he's not cracking anymore. It was It was two unranked heavyweights.
That probably shouldn't have been matched with each other because you know what you're going to get.
You knew what you're going to get. We knew it was going to go to decision. We knew it was going to be close. It was. Arlovsky rightfully won. He's not going to get a ranking out of it if you put him in with a ranked fighter with power, like we saw with Tom Aspinall.
Yeah.
You know what's going to happen. He's 4-1 his last five. It was just what it said in the tin. That's what that fight was.
But is that the reason that it wasn't promoted to main event then? If they probably knew that it was going to be a fucking shocking fight.
Yeah, I don't know. Like Arlovsky must be on a lot of money.
Yeah.
And they're
big money. Yeah.
But
why don't they put him in there with like the likes of fucking Taito Avasa, a few more of those guys? And I'm not trying to fucking say sell the guy down the river, but that seems to be the MO right now with UFC. These guys that are on crazy money, they'd rather have 3 guys just have to come off contender series in their place. Why not put him in there against these big cracking guys and put on some exciting fights and see if he goes out on his sword?
Like, don't get me wrong, I respect Arlovsky massively.
Been around forever.
21 years in the UFC.
Yeah.
I think that was his 35th fight last night, UFC champion. But it was not good. And he's 42 years old as well. He's not he's not going to come in and win a title. He's there because of his immaculate, history within the sport. But, it just wasn't a good watch in my perspective. And I'm not one of these hipsters that thinks, it was fantastic because there was good techniques. I want to see a fight, and we just didn't get that at times last night.
Yeah. The one fight you were very impressed with, there was a couple, but in particular, Jim Miller versus Eric Gonzalez.
What a cracker of a fight.
Yeah.
It was a beautiful ending as well. Gonzalez threw the most laziest kick you'll ever see. It was almost disrespectful in how lazy it was. And Miller cracked him over the top of the left. First finish in, I think it's the UFC 200. I read today.
Fucking Christ.
But he was stone cold out, Gonzalez was. But the first round was a cracker as well. Gonzalez caught him loads of times. Miller came back. What a legend of 38 UFC fights. Never missed weight.
Yeah.
20 wins. What a king,
Another guy that's been there forever. But the difference there is, like you say, you know what you're getting now with Arlovsky, and it's fucking boring for the most part. Jim Miller still brings it every single time.
Absolutely.
Every single time. He's never in a boring fight.
He's the only non-Brazilian to ever have 10 plus subs in the UFC. He subbed Charles Oliveira for fuck's sake. He's an absolute monster. Hero. But the worry about Jim Miller, he'll put together a bit of streak against these younger guys, and then he's going to come in against someone, and we know how that's going to end. But what they're saying is they'll do. So that's 38 fights for Miller. They're saying they're going to aim for 40 against Cerrone. I love that.
Yeah.
I love
they've fought before, I want to say.
No. Not in my memory anyway.
Why do I feel like Miller and
someone will tell us in the comments anyway.
Yeah, for sure.
I can't remember they did.
Yeah. Just quickly on the comments there as well. Dean, apparently they're saying allegedly fighting in December. I wouldn't believe a word of it, Niall, unless he actually wraps up the gloves. But look, we don't know. We've heard it now 3-4 times. I'll believe it when I see it. Lads cornering was a bit odd. Shane Kelly, she had one aggressive voice head coach and one soft voice coach. It was weird to me. Good cop, bad cop. I mean, that was their whole plan, but yeah, they're getting shit for it anyway regardless. And Kaya saying Miller's BJJ is top notch. It is fucking insane. And I mean, to be doing it for a fucking 20 years, man, is just ridiculous. Don't you get like this is telling my fucking knowledge, but you get a particular grade of belt for being active in BJJ for 30 years, don't you?
Lad, the only role I know is a breakfast roll.
I want to say that. Someone will correct me in the comments again, but I think there's a particular grade. It's active as a black belt. So if you're active as a black belt for 30 years, you get a different grade of belt again. One of the Gracies has, or probably a couple of them have it, but I mean, to be competing for 30 years as a black belt is fucking insane. He's definitely been competing for 15 as a black belt, like.
You'd have to
15
think so,
to 20.
given his level. I think he did, but he's not. He's a bit like Cerrone. He's wrapped up the fights fairly quickly. I think Miller debuted in like 07 or 08.
Yeah.
And he had an extensive career before that as well. That was his 50th fight last night. And,
Yeah, look, but like 07, 08, we feel like that's not that long ago. It's a fucking long time ago.
I know,
It's
I know,
13,
yeah.
14 years ago. Like,
I know
I was only a young pup.
it feels like it was yesterday, I suppose, because you know. But if you said 2001, 1987, we'd be like, fucking hell.
Yeah,
it was a different genre. But
like Arlovsky was what? Was he 99?
2000,
UFC?
November 2000.
I thought he was one of the few fighters that had fought in 4 generations in the UFC.
No, he fought in November, or UFC 28 was his debut, because it was the same night that the unified rules came in.
Who was the guy you saw that fought in
Alexei
4?
Olenek.
No, Alexei Olenek has fought in 5 decades, because he fought in the 80s as well. 80s, 90s.
No, he fought in 95, he debuted, I think.
Alexei?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that there's one guy anyway has fought in 5 decades, still active.
You're telling me there's a fighter that fought in the 80s active?
Yeah, he fought at the start of 2020. I can't remember. I touched on this on a podcast way at the start of last year. Can't remember his name because I was looking this up. But there was a fighter on the roster that had done 90s, noughties.
It's not possible in the UFC because Arlovsky is the longest serving member of the roster. So he was.
You're calling me a fucking liar now, Andy. That's lip. What did we say earlier?
He was November 2000, right? You've Robbie Lawler in 2002, Nick Diaz in 2003.
Yeah.
So there's nobody on the roster to fought
When
before
did Robbie
Arlovsky.
Lawler?
2002.
Fuck yeah, you're right. There was definitely someone I want to say.
There was a thing going around of fighters that were active in multiple decades.
I'm questioning the stat man. Like I'm going to lose this argument.
It was Alexei Olenek debut in like 96, I want to say.
Mm-hmm.
And he's still fighting now. So that's 20s, 10s, 90s, 90s, 4 decades. And there was a couple like that scraped in there. But there's definitely no one debuted before Arlovsky in the UFC.
Okay, I'm not going to question your, because you just know all this shit, but there was definitely someone fought in the 80s and fought at the start of 2020. Because it blew my mind last year. I'm not going to just forget about that. It wasn't.
Turn off the camera. So we're going at
it. Before we do close out the show, was there anyone else that impressed you on the card?
In the UFC?
Before we get to the Bellator, yeah.
Landwetter had a great finish.
Mm.
I think he wrapped up an anaconda. It was really nice. You had Silva and Sanchez was a tasty old scrap. Daddy Roberts won the decision. I'm not Derek Hickey. I'm not a qualified judge, but good God.
Shouldn't have been done.
Do you know when they flash up the comments between rounds? At the end of the fight, he was a 6-1 underdog, and he won a decision. That should tell you.
Because I just saw the result, and Danny Roberts in his last, I want to say his last one, or maybe the one before that, fought one of the other.
He knocked him out. A nice left hook.
Yeah, Imadayev, and knocked him out, and I was like, he's been thrown to the fucking wolves here against another really tough Russian. And I was like, how was he picked up another victory there? I was like, there's no fucking, how was that man doing that? Like,
it was questionable at the best. I know they might say in the comments what they thought about the scoring, but I was like 30-27, 29-28. MAF
and
clearly, like, you know,
28-29 was it for?
There was a 30-27 Roberts.
For Roberts.
Chris Lee, you know that judge.
Yeah.
Oh man.
But it seems like every event he's at is some fucking woeful.
But I hate commenting on judging because I'm not, like, even though we watch the sport, we know the criteria. I'm not a fucking judge at the end of the day.
I've no problem doing it because I'm an arsehole.
But it was just like, it was so fucking
obvious.
Even Lupi Godinez was fighting, and I tweeted out at the end of the fight, I was like she won, and then somebody was like, this cunt didn't even watch the fight. It's like, what? She lost?
Yeah.
It's like, how? She lost the decision as well. I was like, I don't know what I'm watching anymore.
Yeah, and she only fought a couple of weeks ago as well, didn't she?
She fought last week. It's the quickest turnaround in the history of the UFC. 7 days. Well, modern history.
Hell. Yeah, that's some gangster shit right there. Because Shimev was 10 days, wasn't there someone?
Yeah, Shimev was 10
less
days
than
in
that.
Fight Island.
Yeah, that's proper gangster shit. So yeah, the card as a whole was awful, but there were some standout performances on it, according to Andy Hickey, Mr. Statman. Bellator, more impressive, better, or still
the
shit?
prelims was
Shit.
Bellator prelims.
Yeah.
But there was a cracker fight, Karl Aldrickson versus Damier Yakhshimeredov.
Dovlechin Yakhshimeredov.
Finally. Every week I can't say the cunt's name. That was a good old scrape. Very good. Aldrickson won. And he's got a win over Nemkov's brother. So that lights that up. Corey Anderson was.
He's next for Nemkov, win or lose, I think.
I'd like to watch it, but they've the final to go through now.
But I mean, after that, I think win or lose that final.
Nemkov's good.
Yeah, Nemkov's brilliant, but I think this Karl Aldrickson, the storyline is right there. Just beat up your brother, start fucking yapping and calling him out. You're gonna get your shot. Whether he's the number one contender and he's just lost the belt, a fight against him makes perfect sense. You're jumping up and you're next in line. Or if he's the champion, everyone else has kind of had their shot right now. Everyone was in that Grand Prix. You're the only guy that didn't get it. So start chirping anyway. And who knows, you might be the next to get the shot.
You had Corey Anderson looked very good, but I
saw that
question. Ryan Bader went down with a feather, tickled him in the back of the head, I think. I don't know. What did you see?
He threw the punch, fair. But it bounced off the shoulder, it clipped his ear. It wasn't it certainly didn't land as a flush right hand. And he folded over like a deck chair.
Now they're heavyweight champions after being beaten by Nemkov.
Yeah.
He got beat last night. How does the heavyweight champion come back looking so
appalling? I mean, he's looked appalling in his last two fights.
He did not look good last night. But Bader's 39 as well, so he's not exactly young. But his punch resistance last night looked terrible.
But do you think he actually defends the heavyweight title because it's been sitting on the shelf for 2 years?
Probably not.
Nearly 3 years now at this stage.
And he get a good payday out of it because it'll headline a Bellator event. So,
but if he's to go up there, let's be real about it. If he's to go up there and defend that belt once, because it'll probably only be once.
Yeah. Surely
he's just saying it's Fader or nobody. And I know we're talking about
have an interim champion now.
Yeah, I know, but I know they're talking about Fader as this is his last fight coming up in Russia or whatever. I don't think it will be. I think there'll be one more. But I mean, if you're Ryan Bader, you're going to go in and take on what's your man's name? He's one of Fedor's boys, the interim champion at the moment, Valentin Madevsky.
Or Madevsky.
Madevsky, current interim champion. You're going to go in and take on that murderer?
No,
absolutely fucking not. You're getting touched up by light heavyweights. He's gonna spark you out in a moment, like. Yeah, I think Bader will retire or push for the Fedor fight, which he might not get, but
I think it's nearly time to wrap it up so I can go pints and.
Yeah, no problem. Main event. Impressed? Not impressed?
No, it was good.
But he didn't belong in there. No, really.
No,
he didn't belong.
Too green.
Yeah, and we said that it should have been Aldrickson, but sure, look, it is what it is. Yeah, we are going to sign off. Be sure and follow us over on YouTube on Guts and Glory MMA and on Facebook at The MMA Opinion. Where can we find you on social media?
So I'm on Twitter, Andy Hickey MMA, and all I do is promote our young Irish fighters and do some weird stats.
Very good. Thank you for tuning in.
I want to fight with Chuck. Chuck.
I think he just blew his wad there. Anderson Silva, you absolutely suck.
Where you at, McNuggets, you fucking piece of shit?
I'm cool with all the gods. Gods recognize gods.
This is #1 bullshit.
You can't stop the Superior Express. Choo-choo, motherfuckers.
I don't have much left to say other than you have seen nothing yet.